Counting on the winged Avenger to deliver you from evil, aren't you, my friend?
Are you gonna kill me?
Maybe, maybe not. You could say we're of two minds on the subject. You a gambling man? What say we flip for it? One man is born a hero, his brother a coward. Babies starved, politicians grow fat, holy men are martyred, and junkies grow legion. Why? Luck! Blind, stupid, simple, doodah, clueless luck!
All right, yeah, I'll start there. Okay, we are back with podcast part 3, the part 3 podcast. I am Sam.
And I'm Will.
He's Will. And there's a new Batman, the 6th Batman in our lifetime. Actor, I mean, playing Batman. So we're going back to 1995, and we're going to talk about Batman Forever. Apparently it's Sloppy Baby Month here on podcast part 3.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that this would be an easy breezy watch, and I would remember something from my childhood that I hadn't in a while. And oh boy, this is a movie that felt like it was written by 10-year-olds for 10-year-olds.
The one thing everyone thinks of when they think of Batman Forever is Kiss from a Rose by Seal, which is not in the movie.
Nope.
It plays after the U2 song for 1 minute at the very end of the credits. It's not even written for Batman Forever. Seal wrote the song in 1987 and he didn't like it. And then he finally recorded it in 1994 for his second album, for Seal 2. This wasn't even the first movie it was in. It was in Neverending Story 3. It got re-released as a single in 1995 with a new video directed by Joel Schumacher, and it was re-released as Kiss from a Rose, the love theme from Batman Forever.
Oh my god.
Because it was originally supposed to be played over I'm assuming, a sex scene with Val Kilmer and Nicole Kidman that never came to pass.
Oh my god.
So, since that started in the late 80s, we might as well go back to 1989 and a little movie simply titled Batman. And Batman was the most groundbreaking superhero movie just in terms of cultural impact, I'd say.
Yeah, I think that's right.
There had been maybe one other successful superhero franchise in feature films, and that was the Superman movies, the Richard Donner Superman movies, that actually took the character seriously at all. Like, before this, Batman was Adam West or the Super Friends, at least outside of comics, and then in the 80s, Batman in particular became kind of the face of an overhaul of superhero comics because of Frank Miller, and Frank Miller wrote Batman Year One, and he wrote The Dark Knight Returns, and it was this very serious, very gritty, very, I would say, like, respectful take on the Batman mythos and the Batman character, and then that in turn gave us Batman, the movie from Warner Brothers, directed by Tim Burton and starring Michael Keaton.
Jack Nicholson, too.
And yes, and Jack Nicholson, top billed, so I should have mentioned him first, as the Joker, and it was a massive hit. Like, I'm a little too young to remember it, but that gold Batman logo
was everywhere. I mean, I was about to turn 5 when that movie came out, and I was Batman crazy anyway, and everywhere you turned that summer, it was just Batman this and Batman that. Like, you couldn't throw a rock without hitting Batman's stuff.
Yeah. No, huge.
It was insane.
Huge hit. I'm not going to say it spawned a superhero, like, trend in movies, because it didn't really. You didn't get any of the others, more or less.
No, you mostly just got a bunch of movies that were aping the style of that movie.
Yeah.
And not necessarily, like, you had Dick Tracy.
Oh, yeah.
And you had, like, Darkman in a way was kind of that, and The Shadow. and The Phantom. You had sort of all these movies that were aping the stylistic touches of Batman, but you didn't get anything that was like, you didn't get an Aquaman movie off of a Batman movie
No.
or a Wonder Woman movie.
Then in the 90s, they were constantly trying to get Spider-Man off the ground, but it didn't happen.
Right.
But yeah, it was then every studio snapped up every other like early 20th century pulp property that wasn't owned by Marvel and DC and made a movie out of that. And then in addition, there was that sort of stylized noir gothic aesthetic for like the design of Gotham City, and you can draw a straight line from 1989 and that all the way to like The Matrix, I would say, in 99.
Oh, yeah.
Dark City and The Crow and all of those movies, Blade to a lesser extent. It's this sort of, it's a city that's like kind of set out of time, and it's all made of matte paintings and but yeah, the Batman's big influence led to such classics as The Phantom with Billy Zane, and Dick Tracy, which was remember the marketing for that? That was everywhere. They thought
that was everywhere.
They
too,
thought that movie was going to be so huge, and it was. I mean, I think it did okay, but it didn't do great.
No.
Batman itself got a sequel in 1992. Tim Burton and Michael Keaton came back for 1992's Batman Returns, which also starred Danny DeVito as the Penguin, Christopher Walken as evil industrialist Max Schreck, who was not from the comics but is the best villain in this entire series. Just going to say that there, and it's not up for debate. And probably most notably, Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman. And that was not... that is the most Tim Burton-y movie ever. It's Danny DeVito and the circus freaks featuring Batman.
Yeah, it was very clearly like Warner Brothers wanting to make a sequel and letting Tim Burton do whatever the hell he wanted, and just he ran with it. He just went hog wild as much as the budget would let him.
Yeah, it's weirdly, for all its ambition, it feels like a smaller movie than Batman. It kind of only has like 3 sets. Yeah. It's like you're either in the sewer, you're in the town square with the Christmas tree,
some random warehouse, or Wayne Manor, or
you're on a roof, a nondescript roof. And so it was still like successful and critically well received, I think on a par with Batman, but it made like $150 million less than Batman did in 1989.
And parents complained. Like, that's the big thing, is that parents complained that it was too dark and too violent and too scary and too weird and Freudian.
They're not entirely wrong. It's basically the Hot Topic Batman movie. And like, to this day, people say Michelle Pfeiffer's their favorite Catwoman. She's a Catwoman. She's not my favorite. I don't think I have a favorite. But it is it's a crazy movie. Batman and Batman Returns, I think our generation holds them in very high esteem, kind of because for the longest time they were the only game in town in terms of Batman. Like, now I feel like we don't have to revere them because they've made more Batmans. There's a lot of different types of Batman movies out there now.
I agree, and I think one of the funnier things about the Tim Burton movies in particular is that, you know, everyone points to those, or did at least, pointed to those saying, oh, they're so serious and they're so like, and they're so dark and real, man. And you watch the two movies together and those are so fucking campy and so like just out of control banana pants.
And the scripts aren't great. The villains have no real motivation. Like, Jack Nicholson as the Joker changes his sort of overall goal in the movie about 3 or 4 times. Like, at one point he wants to be an artist, and then he gives that up. The Penguin runs for mayor, and then he gives that up. And I'll say this much for Batman Forever: at least the villains keep their, stick to their plan all the way into the third act.
Pretty much, yeah.
Before we get into the movie itself, obviously there was a lot of personnel turnover between Batman Returns in 92 and Batman Forever in 1995. Tim Burton and Michael Keaton were both attached at the start, but Warner Brothers really wanted to go less dark. They wanted a more fun movie because, McDonald's didn't want to do tie-ins with Batman Returns, and it was like, I wasn't allowed to go see it in the theater because everyone told my parents it was too scary. I had a shit ton of the toys, though.
I cajoled my parents to take me to to Batman Returns. I did end up seeing that in the theater, and yeah, the toys were everywhere for that movie.
Good lineup of Batman action figures doing things he never did in the movie, like Jungle Assault Batman.
And Laser Climb Batman,
it's
or
like
whatever that one is.
Cyber Ninja Batman. So Batman Forever, I think once they wanted to go in the lighter direction, Tim Burton decided, you know what? No, I think he decided to focus on Ed Wood, smartly. He stayed on as an executive producer. They gave him a dump truck full of money, and I think he had a hand in picking the next director. And they ultimately chose Joel Schumacher, who I think had come off of The Client at this point, which was like a big hit. The Client is probably the most low-key Joel Schumacher movie you'll ever see. He'd also done, I think prior to this, he'd done The Lost Boys, he'd done Falling Down with Michael Douglas, and he'd written The Wiz.
Oh, and you can't forget, Sam, our personal artifact that we discovered in college, DC Cab.
Oh, yes, I forgot about DC Cab. That DVD had so few special features, it just played the movie in a loop. Yes, if you haven't seen DC Cab, and if you felt like you aren't getting enough Mr. T and Bill Maher and Gary Busey have a cab company together, that's the movie for you.
And it is so strange.
It's a very strange
as a movie. It is so weird. It's kind of amazing, but it is very
It might
weird.
be the only so bad it's good movie that in my favorite so bad it's good movies that's actually a comedy, because usually bad comedy I hate.
Right.
Other directors considered John McTiernan of Die Hard fame and Sam Raimi. And I could see Raimi, this is Raimi coming off of Darkman and Army of Darkness. I could see him definitely doing a type of Batman Forever sort of superhero movie, because his Spider-Mans are very campy and earnest too.
Yeah.
Well, once they had Joel Schumacher in place, they moved on to picking a new Batman, because Michael Keaton decided, nah. At this point, I imagine all the different ideas that were being kicked around, he was just like, no, I don't want to put on that suit. And they had a long list of people they considered. I think they only offered it to one person besides Val Kilmer. They initially offered it to Ethan Hawke.
Okay.
And he turned it down, but later said he regretted that decision. Presumably he regretted that decision sometime when he was trying to refinance his home or something.
Could have used that Batman Forever money. Ugh.
So they ultimately landed on Val Kilmer, who had just come off of Tombstone, and that movie was a big success, and he's great in it. Like, in 1995, Val Kilmer as a casting choice made a lot of sense as Batman.
Oh yeah.
Other names considered, though. You want to hear them all?
I do.
Dean Cain. But they decided no, because he was already Superman.
He's already Superman.
Yeah. Keanu Reeves.
Okay.
Alec Baldwin. And failing that, William Baldwin. Tom Hanks. Kurt Russell. Ralph Fiennes.
Oh, that's an interesting choice.
Johnny Depp. And Daniel Day-Lewis. Which I sorely wish they'd. I wish Daniel Day-Lewis would just once, for a lark, take like a Marvel role, just to see what he could do with it.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing. It would be more amazing if he was in this movie.
Yeah, no, as Batman too.
As Batman.
Yeah, that would be so just, and he would have stayed in character the whole time. It would have been amazing.
Oh my God.
And for the two villains, it was going to be the Riddler and Two-Face. And first thing off the bat, the first thing they did was screw over Robin Williams for a second time in this franchise, because he'd been initially promised the role of the Joker in the 1989 Batman, and then, like, basically Warner Brothers went behind his back and got Jack Nicholson and didn't tell him. Same thing happened this time. He was gonna be the Riddler in Batman Forever as a consolation for Batman 89, and then when they went with Jim Carrey, he didn't find out till he read it in the trades.
Oh, boy.
So, not Robin Williams as the Riddler, and at the same time, Billy D. Williams, what played Harvey Dent, Lando Calrissian played Harvey Dent in 1989 and only took the part because he wanted to play Two-Face at some point. and they decided to go with someone else. And so they said no to Billy D. Williams. And among the names considered for Two-Face were a lot of actors that make a lot more sense than Tommy Lee Jones for this characterization of Two-Face. You had Robert De Niro and Clint Eastwood, who I don't see them reading this script and seeing probably the concept art and saying, okay. Martin Sheen, Al Pacino.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Pacino would have done this with his eyes closed. Willem Dafoe and Nicolas Cage.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, we missed out. Because they went with Tommy Lee Jones, who on paper you'd think would be a great Harvey Dent. He'd just come off of The Fugitive. He'd won an Oscar. You'd think he'd be fantastic. And as we'll get into it, you will find out he is not. And once Robin Williams was off the table, and before they got Jim Carrey, the names they considered for the Riddler, one person who really wanted the part and lobbied really hard for it, Michael Jackson.
Okay.
One name considered was Brad Dourif, who was also Tim Burton's original choice to play the Joker, and he also considered him to play the Scarecrow at one point. And Brad Dourif would have been great as any of those three parts.
Oh, man, he would have been perfect.
Yeah, Brad Dourif would be fantastic as a Batman villain.
Yeah.
It's not too late. He's still with us. Other names considered included Mark Hamill, Rob Schneider, Steve Martin, Adam Sandler, Phil Hartman, John Malkovich, Kelsey Grammer, Matthew Broderick, and Mickey Dolenz from the Monkees.
They were just throwing darts at the wall with some of those.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't picture. Honestly, I can't and I don't want to picture any of them in like the speed skating Riddler outfit.
Yeah.
But I'm not finished. There's one more new part that was going to be in this movie. A little fella called Dick Grayson, a.k.a. Robin, was going to finally make his live-action on-screen appearance. Originally, Marlon Wayans had been cast as Robin.
That's right. He was going to be in Batman Returns.
That is correct. And he was signed on for sequels, but then they decided to cut Robin out of the shooting script because they thought Batman Returns had too many characters. Little did they know what was up ahead. Among the names considered for Robin for Dick Grayson in Batman Forever, Matt Damon, Mark Wahlberg, Jude Law, Corey Haim and Corey Feldman, Scott Speedman, Ewan McGregor, and Christian Bale.
Okay.
I wonder what the overlap is between people considered for Robin in 1995 and people considered for Batman in 2005. And weirdly enough, considered for Robin, Alan Cumming.
Really?
Yeah, I have
95 Alan Cumming? That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he was kind of young back then, but I see him as the Riddler. That's your Riddler.
Yeah, that's your Riddler. Yeah.
All right. Well, I wrote all this down, so of course I had to share it. But that's just to let you know what a build up to this movie there was. And it was in 1995, summer of 1995, Batman Forever was everywhere. It was on every bus and billboard and newspaper. There were toys, there were tie-ins, there were some sick glasses from McDonald's. There was the soundtrack was everywhere.
Yep.
And the movie itself was a huge hit. If you watch this movie now and you've never seen it before, a movie that, to quote my wife who watched it with me, she said, "This movie is giving me nothing." It was a massive hit.
A huge hit. I mean, and it was such a huge hit that it surprised everyone how big of a hit it was.
I think it surpassed Batman 89. It was a massive hit. If you're going from Batman Returns to Batman Forever, they might as well not be the same franchise.
I mean, they are in that they share certain sort of aesthetic ideas, I guess, but the Gotham City in this movie is more just this day-glow Blade Runner nightmare that the other movies don't have the same idea.
This is not how Gotham City ever appeared in the comics.
No.
This is like Universal City Walk or Times Square cranked up to 1,000,000.
Yeah, there's
It's full of like
so much neon, so many spinning fans, so many spinning fans.
so many gigantic statues.
Yes.
There's giant statues everywhere.
Yeah.
Even more so in Batman and Robin, but in this one it's all there, and a lot of bad CGI cityscapes.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of swooping through the bad CGI cityscapes too for no real reason. It's all just kind of like filler footage too.
Yeah, a lot of Dutch angles.
Oh boy, so many Dutch angles.
A lot of filler footage for a 2-hour movie that had about an hour's worth of material cut from it too. This movie is a Robin and Riddler origin story, because when it starts out, Batman is up and running, of course, because it's his third movie, and Two-Face is already Two-Face, so they skipped all the interesting shit about Two-Face and got right to.
I mean, I aside from knowing the comics stuff with Two-Face and skipping all the sort of what makes Two-Face interesting is his origin, but I kind of appreciated not having an origin for Two-Face and just sort of running right into it. And I wish, I mean, and now the superhero movies are so mired in the shared universe aspect of things that this isn't really a problem anymore. But I wish more superhero movies did this, where it was just like, oh, here's this villain and the hero has to deal with it, and we're going to sort of dispense with the origin story as like background filler.
Yeah,
you know?
Batman Forever and Batman and Robin definitely do that, because Batman and Robin starts the same way. He just gets a phone call from Commissioner Gordon, said, "There's a new villain at the Gotham Museum. His name is Mr. Freeze."
Yeah, exactly, and you're off and running.
Yeah, it's I guess there's something to that. I just Harvey Dent as a character, and then Two-Face. That's not the villain you want to do that with.
No,
you could do that with the Riddler, because who gives a fuck? But
yes, yeah, I agree. I mean, I absolutely agree. Two-Face as a character is far more interesting if you play sort of the split personality and play the I mean, kind of what the Dark Knight did, 13 years later or whatever.
Imagine if you told someone who had been living in like a cave for the last 100 years, and they come out and there's some Batman movies, and as a prank you showed them the Dark Knight and then told them Batman Forever was the sequel to it. Can you imagine how confused they'd be?
Well, or just show it to, like, do that to like a kid now or something, just like sit them down. Maybe I'll do that with Evan. I'll show them The Dark Knight and then show him Batman Forever and say, this is the direct sequel.
Yeah, no, that's the same Two-Face. He puts bubblegum on his face to make it feel better.
And has two Victoria's Secret models as his girlfriends.
He's got
Drew Barrymore and Debbie Mazar. One for one side and one for the other.
Sugar and spice. So, yeah, there's this whole opening set piece where Batman takes down a bunch of goons. You don't see that anymore, is the villains having their own, like, sort of branded goons.
Yeah, I miss it, actually.
I miss goons. Yeah, we were Elise and I were both lamenting that there's no brand. Villains don't have branding anymore, not even in the Marvel movies.
No, it's I miss it, and it's something I really loved in the Batman animated series too. Is that all the villains had their own like group of guys who would just
the '60s Batman did that too. Like Catwoman always had her cat burglar henchmen.
Yeah.
The Arkham series, those games, a lot of the henchmen are themed. I think so. Like you're in Penguin territory or Joker territory. But yeah, these guys all wear like ski masks that are bicolored. They have a lot of piercings, and they have machine guns with neon yin-yangs on them. It's great. I mean, in the next one they're gonna be hockey guys.
A hockey team from hell, yeah.
This is making it all sound like a lot more fun than it is, but honestly, this movie was kind of a drag.
It was a slog, and even like it just starts as the opening action sequence, and the security guard who's just chewing the scenery, who's like, "It's boiling acid! Oh, my glasses!" And you're just like, "Oh boy, here we are."
Yeah, it's a Wayne Knight type.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so, and it goes from there. The Riddler is an employee at Wayne Enterprises, who's...
And a Bruce Wayne mega fan.
Yeah, huge fan. And he makes I think it was only this time watching it I figured out what it is that Edward Nygma's box does. It's intended to just make your TV look like it's three-dimensional. And then it happens to accidentally, he discovered that it can suck out the viewer's brainwaves and make him smarter.
Right. And basically perform Inception at a certain point too.
Yeah, at some point he can read your mind and steal your thoughts. That's like, he has like a launch party for Box 2.0 at one point. Oh, there's a lot of... This is the thing. This is just a real Jelly Belly bean bag of little things we gotta pick through. We haven't even mentioned that Batman has a love interest right out of the gate, played by Nicole Kidman.
Who is so horny for Batman.
Criminal psychologist Dr. Chase Meridian. She's basically Harley Quinn if Harley Quinn met Batman first.
And just never went fully bad.
Yeah, she's just like, but she's like, she was gonna be horny for someone, and she, literally the first shot of Nicole Kidman seeing Batman, she has like no woman has ever been as into James Bond as Nicole Kidman is into Batman in this movie. She sets up the bat signal just to basically booty call him. And kind of the big runner of the movie is Batman trying to get her to fall for Bruce Wayne so that she won't be obsessed with Batman. And kind of the big emotional climax of the movie is her telling Batman, I don't want you, I want to be with someone else, and him having to pretend to act all hurt, but really he's like, oh, she wants to be with Bruce Wayne, sweet, I'm off the hook.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we have to say what Nicole Kidman's first line of the movie is hot entrance.
Hot entrance. Do you have a first name, or do I just call you Bats?
You Bats. Oh, my God. Oh, Lord.
Bats aren't rodents, Dr. Meridian. Val Kilmer, good Batman, kind of a boring Bruce Wayne, in my opinion.
So, I agree, except in the scenes where he is imitating Adam West. Did you notice this? I'd never noticed this before until this viewing. When he's trying to solve the riddles with Alfred, he is imitating Adam West. It's almost a perfect imitation, but it's almost too subtle in a way.
Yeah, he's good at that part of Bruce Wayne. And this is a part of Bruce Wayne you actually don't see in a lot of Batman movies, which is Bruce Wayne. There's Bruce Wayne out in the world being Bruce Wayne, billionaire philanthropist, or in the case of these movies, Bruce Wayne, like, awkward, handsome nerd.
Yeah.
But there's also the Bruce Wayne where, like, when he's not fully Batman and he's doing Batman work. Like, he's being a detective.
He's a detective.
Which you don't get a lot of Batman as a detective in any of the Batman movies, including the Christian Bale ones.
You get a little bit more of it in the Christian Bale ones. There's like some scenes where they do weird things with fingerprints on a bullet in The Dark Knight, but it's never entirely clear what exactly they're doing or how they're doing it, but like it's kind of there.
Yeah, I mean, it's for the character who's supposed to be the world's greatest detective, filmmakers never seem all that interested in that part of him. No. And, that's a choice. There's a lot of different ways you can go with Batman, but he's got some moments when he's allowed to when he like lets down the cool, like when he's not just kind of talking like this. Tell me, Dr. Meridian, do you like the circus? That sort of thing, when he kind of lets his guard down a bit. And when he's talking to Dick Grayson, like when he's being real with Dick, like Dick Grayson's like, your parents weren't killed by a maniac. Yes, they were. Like he's kind of earnest, and he's embracing the camp of it a bit. Val Kilmer kind of infamously had a reputation of being like not always the easiest guy to work with, and he always was kind of like the cool guy. He was like too cool for school, on set and as a character. And so I wonder if a little bit of that is just him kind of letting that part slide and letting himself play anything resembling like a vulnerable character or like an emotionally honest character. Because there's, as I said before, there's like an hour's worth of material cut from Batman Forever, and it's all character stuff with Bruce Wayne. Like there's a whole character arc that's only slightly touched upon in this, about his repressed memories about his father.
And the diary, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like in this they establish he's having these memories of a red leather book, and it's his father's diary, and they kind of don't really follow through on it. It just leads to like a flashback of him discovering the cave and seeing like the vision of the giant bat.
Right.
And, you know, a big thing in this movie is like, can Batman and Bruce Wayne truly coexist? Are you Bruce Wayne or are you Batman? I think the things that were in there were him sort of remembering things in the diary that made him feel like he was responsible for them being out that night when they got murdered, and him blaming himself for it and having these feelings of guilt of like, you know, he you know, and I think that ties into his guilt about Dick Grayson and taking Robin in and trying to guide him. You know, I don't know how. And then there's like a whole vision he has after the Batcave gets destroyed where he goes down and like confronts a giant bat. And it's, you know, it's I've seen the footage. It's like the bat from all the visions that you see. He goes down.
Right.
If you watch the trailer, there's like one shot of him with the giant bat. Like they're like face to face, and he's kind of like mirroring its images. I mean, it's all a little bit of stuff and nonsense, but it's more nuanced than this series had been at all up to this point.
Well, I mean, this series never ever gave a shit about Bruce Wayne. I mean, and in a lot of ways, the Burton Schumacher movies mimic the James Bond movies more than they are like actual comic book movies. Like they're more focused on the villains, they're more focused on the villains' plots and the gadgets, and Batman's kind of just doing Batman stuff.
Yeah.
And they never really care about Bruce Wayne or what he's feeling. This movie hints on it, but like you say, it was all cut. But he like gives up being Batman for seemingly no reason.
Yeah, I think and that's after she's like, I'm not in love with Batman, I'm in love with Bruce Wayne. So I guess he decides, I can't ever be Batman if I'm going to be with Nicole Kidman.
Right. And it doesn't make sense, especially because it's like, well, but Two-Face is like doing stuff. Like,
yeah,
it's
there's
not
villains
like, it's
out
not
there.
like the city is safe. It's not like he's like cured crime or whatever. He's
you're gonna have to do something about that Neon Dayglow gang at some point too. You know, it's
the baseball furies of Gotham City.
Yeah. Oh, I wish the baseball furies had showed up.
Yeah. Right.
You see the Droogs at one point in Batman and Robin. They're hanging out at the motorcycle chase. So you can also see them in Space Jam 2. They're at the basketball game. It's a Warner Brothers property. What are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do?
Like, we're talking all about the character work in Batman Forever. So in the meantime, he's dealing with this. The Riddler teams up with Two-Face so that Two-Face. So he'll be like, I'll help you destroy Batman. You gotta rob shit to get me money to start my own company to rival Bruce Wayne so that I can sell the box to...
So that I can find out who Batman is.
Yeah.
Which, as plans go to get Batman, that one's... Well, it's a choice.
I mean, it's convoluted, but at least they're interested in Batman.
Right.
You know, the Penguin just wants to kill all the firstborn children.
Right.
He doesn't give a shit about Batman.
Right. And Joker doesn't really give a shit about Batman. They just added the not terribly interesting wrinkle that he also killed Batman's parents in the 9 movie.
And they're both into the same girl.
Right. And they
both like Vicky Vale.
Right. God.
Oh, this movie's a mess. None of the some of the fighting stuff's okay, but like the whole final act, the action set pieces make no sense, and they're just all like riddled with laser question marks, and the geography of it is impossible to follow. When they get to like the Joker's, the Riddler's island lair, fuck me.
Yeah, it is all over the place, and not all over the place in a fun way. It's just confusing and hard to sort of put it all together and figure out what they're doing or why and all that stuff. And the thing that hit me this time around is the Robin story makes no sense because Chris O'Donnell is 25 years old.
Yes. There are so many lines in this where I'm like, was this written with like a 13-year-old in mind? Like,
yeah, I mean, it's like you'd think because of how geared towards children this movie is, and like how it feels like it was written by a 10-year-old playing with Batman action figures, that they would have a child insert character in the movie, but they must have thought that was just too dark, having the kids' parents killed on screen.
or they maybe thought it was like too weird for Batman to put a 13-year-old in one of the nipple suits.
Right, but the way that they do it here is that Batman doesn't really put him in the nipple suit. It's all up to him. Like Robin comes up with that idea, and Alfred helps him. But
I meant more from like a production standpoint. Just
yeah,
like,
yeah.
were the costume guys like, do we have to make like a 13-year-old boy's nipple and butt suit?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Batman has never had an issue putting 13-year-olds in like tights and having them go out and fight serial killers.
But I feel like the movie might make just a little bit more sense if Dick Grayson felt at least 16.
Yeah, there's a lot of lines. Like every time, like once he finds out Bruce Wayne is Batman, you like all the lines were like, "I could be your partner, Bruce. I can be." Like, they're coming from like, but it's this 25-year-old earring wearing, motorcycle riding man.
Who's got a real rude tude.
Yeah, he's so cool.
So cool. It's like, I'm not wearing my suit today. Ugh.
Yeah. Oh, so I forgot my suit. Imagine that coming from a 15 or 16-year-old. It makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
If that was coming from like Eddie Furlong
Right.
in Terminator 2, like that's kind of what I gotta imagine that was what they had in mind.
It must have been. And I just don't. It's such a baffling creative decision because they're arguing about things, and you're just like, I don't know. You're a grown ass man, dude. You do what you want to do.
Yeah, they keep saying he's run away. I'm like, no, he rode off on the motorcycle he owns.
Oh boy, I don't know. Maybe the working in the circus stunted him or something. But good God.
I mean, that was like a Cirque du Soleil. I mean, that was a Joel Schumacher circus, all right. It was.
Yeah, that was definitely like Cirque du Soleil by way of Blade Runner. It's like
now performing at the Gotham Hippodrome.
yes, yeah.
Robin's a tough character. Have we seen Robin in a feature since Batman and Robin?
No, I mean, I guess, and we'll get to this next week. There's kind of a Robin in The Dark Knight Rises.
Oh,
but...
fuck that! No, there isn't. Shut up. John Blake.
Robin John Blake. Right, something like that. But no, we haven't. And I mean, they allude to him in the Zack Snyder movies, but no, we don't. We haven't had a Robin on screen, and partly because it's a tough nut to crack, because it's either the child endangerment thing is hard to sell. And part of the problem is, and with the Burton Schumacher movies, is that if you, outside of the origin, if you're not going to do Robin, Batman just isn't terribly interesting as a character. And you kind of need him to have other side characters to bounce around, which is why, The Dark Knight isn't about Batman. It's really about Gotham and about the expanded cast in Gotham.
Like, that's why there's the whole Bat family. And that's
Right.
why in the new one, it seems like he's going to be playing off a Catwoman a lot, which
Right.
is probably a good idea. And also, Robin's tough because there are now like 4 Robins in canon, and they all have like different. Like Dick Grayson as a character is like he's been in like shows, like he's in the Titans live action series, but he's Nightwing and he's a leader, like he's grown up. And then like Jason Todd isn't Robin anymore, and he's just defined by dying and coming back to life. And the current Robin is Batman's son, which was who was like a product of date rape with Ra's al Ghul's daughter.
Oh boy. What?
Yeah, Damian Wayne. And then there's Tim Drake was in there, but he's kind of been like retconned in the comics. He like isn't. He's just like. I think he just goes by Red Robin, and I think he kind of wears the Kingdom Come Robin outfit.
Okay.
Yeah, because they just didn't know what to do with him.
Right, because they brought him back and as like their version of Winter, or it was not even their version of Winter Soldier. It happened right at the same time, didn't it? Where Bucky came back and Tim Drake came back.
No, you're thinking of Jason Todd.
I'm sorry, I am thinking of Jason Todd. That's right.
Jason Todd is Red Hood.
Right.
Dick Grayson is Nightwing.
Tim Drake was Robin number 2. That's right. Okay.
Robin number 3.
Right, after Jason Todd.
Correct.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yes. God, noob.
Yeah.
And then Stephanie Brown, aka Spoiler, was in there too somewhere for like a hot second. And then she was Batgirl, and then they retconned the whole DC universe, and Barbara Gordon got the use of her legs back.
Boy.
But yeah, the relationship between Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson, it's one that you kind of need to allow to evolve over time. Because it's all about, like, their shared trauma and their history together. The origin is kind of the toughest story to do.
Right.
And, you know, it's not the most interesting story either, because it's spending a lot of time with Dick Grayson, who got more interesting when he stopped being Robin.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and the interesting thing about the Bat family is, like you say, that dynamic and that conflict. And one of the fun parts of reading the Batman comics is when Dick Grayson leaves to become Nightwing, and the fractured relationship between Batman and Nightwing. And one of the reasons why I like the Nightfall storyline so much is because it focuses on Dick Grayson and Tim Drake and how pissed off they both are at being replaced by this like lunatic.
Nightfall, because this in the comics around this time was like a bunch of kind of landmark events in comics, because I think both DC and Marvel were kind of struggling to stay relevant. Yep. So 94, 95, you had it all started with the death of Superman, which was a big deal. You gotta buy like 10 issues because they're gonna be valuable someday. Everything had a hologram cover, and then Spider-Man did the Clone Saga, and at the same time, Batman did Nightfall, where Bruce Wayne is, Bane breaks him over his knee, and Bruce Wayne is no longer Batman. It was the first time someone else was gonna be Batman, and instead of it being Dick Grayson, it was Jean-Paul Valley, who was like a crazy person.
Yeah,
look, we don't have time here to go into the whole backstory of Azrael.
Well, I mean, he was basically like Batman if Batman were trained by like a weird Catholic cult.
Yeah, that's kind of what Damian Wayne is. He's Batman if he were trained like from birth by the League of Shadows or something. I'm making Nightfall sound worse than it is, and we're making Batman Forever sound better than it is. And it's the opposite. Nightfall is also like the first appearance of Bane, and you get Bane's origin, and that's all really cool and really interesting, and they don't do a lick of that in Dark Knight Rises, which we'll talk about next week. Yeah.
A lot of Nightfall talk next week, too. So
Nightfall and No Man's Land both play in terms of comic stories. I like the relationship between Batman and Dick Grayson post Robin. Like the show Titans, I haven't seen a lot of it, but what I have seen, they do a really good job of like Dick Grayson is really like sort of patiently sick of Bruce Wayne's shit.
Yeah.
Like, and Barbara Gordon too, like in this, she's still in a wheelchair and she's lost a leg and she's kind of sick of Bruce Wayne's shit as well, but they all still can get together and reminisce because that's all they have, really.
Right. Yeah.
And Bruce Wayne in that's played by Ian Glenn from Game of Thrones, Ser Jorah Mormont. Right. And it's kind of a good, I like him as like an older Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and here it's like, I mean, the thing is that also at this point in time, the comics hadn't sort of hit the mainstream like they have now, and pretty much all that the mainstream audiences knew of Batman and Robin was from the 60s TV show, which this is clearly like taking its cue from. It's clearly sort of taking the aesthetics of the Tim Burton stuff and just transposing the 60s show into it.
Yeah, and this one and the next movie, Batman and Robin too, even more so, because I'd say the difference between these two movies, Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, is Batman and Robin, I'm guessing what they set out to make is exactly what you see on the screen, whereas this feels like you can see like all the seams and everything's been chopped up, and it's like through lines don't get picked up on.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously they went through a lot of casting and finding a new director and a new writer, and it's messier than I remember, but not just because it's a mess like story-wise, it's a mess like from a technical standpoint too.
Yeah, it feels like it's sort of all over the place in what it wants to do, what it's trying to do, and it like forgets things, and like Chase Meridian sort of drops out of the movie for a good 20 minutes or so, and then kind of bounces back in, and that's when Batman decides to not be Batman anymore, and I was so looking forward to watching this for the podcast, because I was like, oh, Batman Forever. I remember that being like a lot of fun. I'm sure it's really stupid, but like, and I was bored.
No, I don't know how to say this, but I think the one that if you go back and watch and it's actually a lot of fun might be Batman and Robin.
I think you might be right.
I think because it auto played on HBO Max right after this one, and so we watched the first 10 minutes and like, get the gem, kill the heroes. It's like it knows exactly what it is. And Schumacher said, like, yeah, that's the movie I was trying to make. Sorry. And that's the interesting thing I was thinking about. Just trying to think of, for this movie had a huge impact. Batman Forever did. Massive box office hit. And it occurred to me that because Batman and Robin came out so quickly after it and was such a disaster, like it was a flop, it was a critical failure, basically killed superhero movies until, the early 2000s, and killed Batman until 2005 as a feature idea. This doesn't really have a lot of influence. There's no one tried to ape the aesthetic of Batman Forever.
No.
The only movie I could think of was Mystery Men. Mystery Men feels like it's set in the Joel Schumacher Gotham City.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, and that I guess came out, a year after Batman and Robin?
Yeah, it was, I think, 99 or 2000, actually.
Yeah.
It was a little later.
So, but yeah, I mean, and I'm trying to think, was there a superhero movie that came out in 1996?
Well, while we vamp, I'm going to look it up. Superhero movies, 1996.
I mean, this just felt like such, and the way the movie just plays, it just feels like a series of and then, which made me think that it was like, oh, they just basically wrote down what a 10-year-old was doing with his like Batman action figures. It's like, and then he meets Robin, and then they get a plane, and then they get a boat, and then they go to this island that has a thing, and there's the sky has a laser question mark.
Yeah, it's a lot of, the movie is like basically smashing your action figures against each other. Now, eat your words, Will.
Oh.
There were 3 superhero movies in 1996.
Oh.
They were The Phantom.
Oh, right.
The Crow, City of Angels. And Darkman 3, Die, Darkman, Die.
There you are.
Yeah.
There you are.
Big year for superhero movies. And Orgasmo came out a year later. So... No, it is like superhero movies just stopped existing. I am looking at a list here, and
until Blade, I guess, but that's a superhero adjacent movie, I think.
Yeah, X-Men and then Spider-Man.
X-Men, really. Yeah.
That's like what brought Marvel and DC back into the game. Because there's a 10-year gap between Batman Forever and Batman Begins, and a 8-year gap between Batman and Robin and Batman Begins. And Batman Begins, like, I mean, it's not the perfect movie. No. But it was just like it was so cool to see them do Batman right after, these movies.
I mean, and it sort of started with the trend that Raimi set, which was, the first X-Men movie set, which is, we're going to take these characters, we might change some things up for the screen, but we are going to take them seriously, and we're not going to like play them for jokes. And this is not, we're not above the material. This is what we're doing. We're doing it seriously, and that's what Christopher Nolan did. And that, I mean, like you say, Batman Begins is not a perfect movie by any means, but it is a lot of fun, and it is really satisfying in a way that these other movies aren't, because it focuses on Bruce Wayne.
And for the first time in a Batman movie, the movie is about Batman.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
like, it is a Batman. They basically took like the two supervillains that they hadn't fucked up in the prior four movies,
Yeah.
and they're not too interesting supervillains compared to a lot of the others.
And it's about Batman and how Batman becomes Batman. And there's something. I mean, Christopher Nolan sort of takes this aesthetic idea from Michael Mann, which is there is something very pleasing about watching people do stuff, like do what they're good at or learn things, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's what we're gonna find frustrating in Dark Knight Rises, is that all the stuff that you like in Batman Begins and Dark Knight kind of don't exist in The Dark Knight Rises. You don't get a lot of Batman doing stuff.
Yeah, you don't get any of that process stuff, and this is we'll get into it next week, but so much of that movie ignores all the process stuff in order to hit big moments that it just doesn't do the work to make those big moments land.
Yeah, Dark Knight Rises deliberately chooses not to capture the momentum that's set up by the end of The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
And again, we'll get into it. I've got my hot takes on Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was hoping this would be more fun, but I think it's more just a fondness for that time in my life.
Yeah.
There were movies that came out in 1995 that I like a lot better than this. This isn't a movie I go back and watch in a so bad it's good way. And I don't do that with Batman and Robin either, but I think I would be more inclined to watch that one, because that one is so consistently stupid and so consistently bad. Like that's like a Star Wars prequel, and that is someone's vision brought to the screen.
Which is just a catastrophe. Yeah, I agree. I haven't seen Batman and Robin in a long time, and I hadn't seen this in a long time either. And I was kind of hoping that coming back to Batman Forever, after, how many years, almost 10 years of kind of having the Christopher Nolan dark Batman and then the Zack Snyder even darker Batman in the zeitgeist, I was kind of hoping this like poppier, sillier Batman would kind of, and it didn't. It just didn't.
No, if you want that, you gotta go back to Adam West.
Yeah.
You gotta go back to the 60s. Like, because those were well written, and those were satirical, and those were honestly still have some great versions of those. Like, it's still the best. Like Paul Dano's doing is definitely a different take on the Riddler. I say this without a shred of irony. Frank Gorshin is the best Riddler.
100%. Absolutely.
He's always sharply dressed. He's not as unhinged as the Joker. He's smarter. He's genuinely villainous, and he's just like a little giggly and crazy. And he plays so well off those other characters in that.
And like you say, the writing on that show was just they just knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
They knew that they were making a show that was like a joke, and but it didn't feel like it was above the material. It felt like it was sort of like it just felt like they were having so much fun doing it. And so much of the Schumacher movies in particular, and the Burton movies to a lesser extent, just feels like it's looking down on the material in a way that it's like it has that 90s sort of remove.
Yeah, totally. It's from an era where they were like, I think studios were realizing, okay, comic book adaptations could be profitable, but filmmakers, and this is just maybe unique to Tim Burton and Joel Schumacher in this situation. Tim Burton has said on the record, like, I don't care about comics. He wasn't interested in Batman as a character. He was interested in doing his spin on Batman. Right. It was, maybe what the character needed at the time, but and Joel Schumacher's not interested in, what makes Batman great in the comics either. But you see this in other stuff that was developed at the time, like the James Cameron Spider-Man takes a lot of liberties with the character, and there's that Sam Hamm who co-wrote 89 Batman. I think at least you can find the outline for his Watchmen adaptation.
Oh yeah,
and it throws everything out. There's nothing in that is even close to what Alan Moore was trying to do with Watchmen.
That was the one that Gilliam was going to do, right? Was that the Gilliam one, or is that a different one?
I think that was even before Gilliam. Because that was, I think the progression was, they were developing it with a Sam Hamm script in the late 80s, early 90s, and that fell apart. Then Gilliam was attached. Right. Then Greengrass was attached.
Right.
Then they got Zack Snyder, who was coming off of 300.
and he was able to get it made.
Yeah. Say what you will about Zack Snyder, he got that movie made.
Yeah.
And it's not too far off from what Watchmen is.
And I'm quite fond of his adaptation of Watchmen. I mean, it's got a lot of problems. But
like some parts are miscast, I think,
and some of the acting isn't very good. But I think the things it gets right, it gets really right, and aesthetically, I think it's really cool. It's a very cool movie.
Yeah, like They kept the big blue dong, that's most movies would find a way around that.
Yeah.
Much like Spider-Man 3, Batman Forever is an interesting little peek into the state of superhero movies in the mid-90s.
Yeah.
And that state was not good. Not good, folks.
No, and it's I watching it now, I remember walking out of that movie and I was 9, so I was primed to love and I did. I thought that was the best movie I had ever seen in my life.
I was on board with this movie from the opening credits, because the opening credits are just, they might as well be going, whoa, whoa, they come at you, and just when you think they pass, then they come past the screen like sort of like a subway effect. It's so weird.
And Elliot Goldenfall's score is actually really good, I think.
It's so good. It's got that when it builds to that crescendo and you get they show the title of the movie, there's just these horns that are literally screaming at you. It gets so big, and it's like a march. They got rid of the Danny Elfman score, and they brought in this is why these two movies feel so distinct from the two Tim Burton ones, because they have just the only overlap is, besides the characters, is two actors. It's Pat Hingle and Michael Gough stuck around the whole. Michael Gough, the only dignified character through all 4 movies, as Alfred.
Yeah. But I was trying to imagine somebody now, 9 years old, sitting down to watch Batman Forever, and they would just turn on this movie almost instantly.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, just superhero movies are so different now.
No, and now you don't. Here's the thing: apart from the Batman animated series, which is still in the 90s, which is still kind of a high watermark for Batman. We were also into this because this was it. This was all we could get.
Yeah.
There weren't a lot of other options. Now since Val Kilmer, we're on our 4th Batman since then. And that's not even counting Will Arnett and the Lego Batman. We've done Clooney and Bale and Affleck, and now we're on Robert Pattinson.
Yeah. Yeah. And not counting any of the various TV, live action TV spinoffs or animated shows since then either.
Since this time, and since honestly the last less than 20 years, every facet of the Bat universe has been brought to the screen in some form. You've had Gotham was a whole series that ran forever. You've had multiple animated shows. You've had 1, 2, 3. So at least 6 movies, 7 movies if you count the Lego movies that Batman is in. It's that's the thing. You can look back on this and be like, oh, it's not bad, but I'm not going to get angry about it. No. I was out at dinner with someone once, it was a double date, and I jokingly said I was just talking about, it wasn't even a joke. I said, oh, well, I liked The Dark Knight a lot better than the Burton Schumacher movies. And this guy looked at me like I'd insulted every member of his family. He said, are you seriously putting the Burton movies together with the Schumacher movies? They aren't even the same. How dare you compare the Joel Schumacher ones to the Tim Burton ones? And then he started going off about how much he hated The Dark Knight. And that was the moment when I realized I'm a grown-up and I don't want to talk about Batman all the time. I just want to eat my burger and go home. I don't want to argue with you. I don't know you, man. And why are you getting so angry at me? That's the thing, is people, look, I'm going to go on a limb here and say that superhero fans, comic book fans, DC Comics fans can get a little heated now and then. They basically strong-armed Warner Brothers into making a second Justice League movie just for them, just to watch, so they'd have something to watch during COVID. And, they were righting a wrong on a certain level, but it is just everyone has a different favorite Batman.
Yeah, I mean, and this even goes back to this time period of 95, 97. Like, I don't know if you've been listening to this podcast Download, all about the rise and fall of Ain't It Cool News.
No, but I would love to.
It's very interesting. But one of the things they talk about is actually the release of Batman and Robin, because what Ain't It Cool News did was that they ran a bunch of testing reviews of the movie before it was released, before it was even finished.
Ooh.
And that, it was sort of like, and, that movie caused a bunch of nerd rage.
Oh, yeah. Understandably so. That movie is...
it's
if you're going into that looking for a faithful take on any character in it, you are going to be sorely disappointed. It's so bad. But if you went into it thinking, they're doing a modern-day spin on the Adam West 60s campy Batman, you might be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
Like, if you go into the movie acting like the movie doesn't plan on taking itself too seriously, I'm not going to say it's good, but it's a lot more enjoyable, and it might be the most cohesive of the 4 movies in this series.
Yeah, I think that's true. I'm sure there was a lot of studio tampering with it, but it doesn't feel tampered with.
It was all tampered with before they started, like, the script and rolling.
Right.
The tampering was like, design everything before you finish the script so we can make the toys,
Yeah.
Which is why, like, if you go back and look at the, like, Batgirl toys, it's a completely different costume.
Which is so weird because, like, nothing in that movie, like, none of the toy stuff looks cool.
No.
It looks so dumb.
No, the Batman Returns toys that we kind of, I think most of us look back fondly on, have, like, nothing to do with the movie.
No.
Like, the penguin that you got with the Batman Returns one didn't look like Danny DeVito. It looked like the old Burgess Meredith penguin.
Right.
You could get the penguins with the rockets on their back, but that was it. That was it.
Yeah, I mean, and the Catwoman looked pretty similar,
She-
but there was also a Robin as part of that toy line who just looked like the comic book Robin.
I all remember about that Robin action figure is he had like they'd sculpted his abs and his costumes so it looked like they were kind of like pushing out of a hole in his belly, and I always found that kind of creepy.
What a toy line that was, the Batman Returns toy line.
And that's when they were toys, people
Yeah.
like cared about that sort of thing. But we've moved on now. We all just care about the TikTok and the Bitcoin,
And the NFTs.
the NFTs, which stands for Not Fun Toys. This movie's left me a little punchy. I'm gonna have to get my strength back before next week when we dive into a very different bad third Batman movie.
Yeah.
Next week we're gonna be talking about The Dark Knight Rises from 2012. 12.
Yeah.
Yes. The only thing you know of that movie, if you've never seen it, is the Bane voice. Yes.
Yeah.
We wanted to know what you told them. We're gonna both do that a lot. We can't.
It will be very painful for you.
Perhaps he's wondering why he'd shoot a man before throwing him out of an airplane. Would you like some fries with that, Batman?
Will, do you watch Harley Quinn?
I do.
Yeah,
yes,
the Bane on Harley Quinn is the best Bane.
It's the best.
Yeah.
And it's just how he wants to blow everything up.
Yes, I will blow you up, you chicken satay. He's great. I think it's James Adomian does the voice, and he's just so funny because no one takes him seriously at all.
No. And he's such a sad, lonely character.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
it's great. Harley Quinn series, check it out. A lot of fun. Probably one of my favorite shows on TV. But yeah, Will, any final thoughts on Batman Forever?
What are my final
You
thoughts?
excited for The Batman?
I guess I won't be seeing it until it probably hits VOD anyway, but I don't know. The trailer, I like Matt Reeves a lot. I like his 2 Planet of the Apes movies. I think they're really good. I don't know. I guess I am. I don't know. Batman just makes me tired these days.
We've had a lot of Batman in our lives, gang. It's been a rough road. I'm cautiously excited. Every trailer that comes out makes it look like it's going to be a bit more fun than like that original trailer made it seem like. I want it to, feel different than the Affleck or Christian Bale Batmans. I think Robert Pattinson's a good choice. Like, I like all the casting choices for it.
No, I think so too, and I just want I just want a Batman movie to get away from the origin. I don't want to see Martha Wayne's pearls fall on concrete anymore. I am so tired of that.
She's got to die over and over and over again.
Without a line, ever.
Maybe they'll sidestep it like they did Uncle Ben with the new Spider-Man.
I mean, that's what they should do at this point. I mean, it's like, who doesn't know how Batman became Batman? But it's like, I want something like either The Long Halloween or Hush, where it's like a Batman who's sort of already established, going through a Batman adventure. And I don't want it to connect to anything or connect to another universe. I just want it to be sort of just a Batman mystery.
You kind of want, what you want is something like Batman 89, where he's been Batman for maybe 6 weeks or something. It's not entirely clear. But he's new. If you want Batman from another dimension, I think Michael Keaton's coming back. You're gonna get him in the Flash movie, so there's a little bit of there's something for everyone. So
just like I said, Batman makes me tired, and part of the problem is that I liked Ben Affleck as Batman. I just didn't like the movies he was in.
No, and from what it sounds like, neither did he.
Right.
So.
Yeah. But I mean, like when they were talking about Ben Affleck's Batman movie that he was gonna do, I was like, that sounds great. Why don't we do that? And then, he hated being Batman and hated being in those movies. So what am I to say to force him to do something?
Yeah, I think he just doesn't want to put on that costume anymore, and he doesn't want to have to stay super built and bulky. So I won't begrudge him that.
No.
But yes, so next week, Batman, The Dark Knight Rises, which I'm looking forward to talking about. I'm not really looking forward to watching.
Or to watching, yeah. Because it's also long.
It's long. It's a 2 hour and 40 minute just shots of Pittsburgh. And then after that, it's my pick, and I think I know what I'm going to pick, but I will reveal it next week. I'm going to save it.
Oh, okay.
Again, I'm sort of waffling, but I think I'm not, and I think after these two Batmans, I think I know what I'm going to want to watch, and it's just going to be just like a mug of cocoa. So we keep saying that, and then we keep coming into this podcast all haggard and miserable. Right. So I don't know. I don't trust anything anymore. Well, folks, thank you again for hanging with us, and you can find us on Twitter at Podcast Part 3. That's the number 3. And until next time, I am Sam Charrington.
And I'm Will Morey. And the other car was destroyed.
We didn't even talk about sick-ass Batmobile in this.
Oh, yeah, the Batmobile in this kind of rules.
The Batmobile and the Batwing in this are so cool. They're like an H.R. Giger light design. They're so awesome. Yeah, all right, points for that. It's the best Batmobile in...
These 4 movies.
Yeah. It's the best Batmobile from the movies where they're making a car that looks like a bat, All right. Well, Will, I will talk to you soon. Hold your loved ones tight, because Bane's coming.
Oh, boy.